Tim, a budding math genius, and some other miscreants are busy spray painting on a rooftop when the cops show up. Everyone else makes a run for it, but Tim, having his ears blocked by his headset, has no idea. He's left alone and the cops signal him to come over. Immediately, Tim throws the can of spray paint at them, causing just enough confusion to get a head start. He jumps off one rooftop and onto another, and the cops jump after him. As Tim continues to flee, he notices an apartment right below one of the rooftops, and although it's a dangerous drop, he attempts it. However, he loses his phone in the process. With the cops still on his tail, he barges into the apartment, disrupting the meal of two old ladies. Seconds later, the cops follow too. He eventually loses them by disappearing into a hatch before the cops come up. The hatch leads into the supermarket where Tim's mom, Mrs. Karsten, works. He grabs a juice and approaches her at the counter,
Dein Vater wäre so stolz auf dich.
where she talks about dropping by his school earlier in the day. Tim is initially scared that she found out about him skipping his classes, but it turns out that he won the national math test. In addition, his teacher, Mr. Kalmutzak, nominated him for a scholarship, and he got accepted. His mom hugs him and then explains that there's a catch. Tim can no longer miss classes because he'll be living at the school. Grabbing the flyer, he wonders what he'll do for fun at a boarding school.
Du wirst ganz viele tolle neue Leute kennenlernen.
Wilhelm, popularly known as Willy, is the son of Hermann Sourlick, a chocolate tycoon. He gets dropped off by his dad's private plane, and his guardian, Georg, escorts him to room 53, where he's shocked to find Tim. Apparently, he expected to have the room all to himself, so he's rude to Tim for having to share his space. Georg then encourages him, promising to send him some treats via express delivery. They share a hug, and on his way out, he begs Tim to be patient with Willy and calls him Kooky.
Meine Freundinnen. Alles klar.
As he says goodbye, Tim can't help but mock Willy about the nickname, watching as the spoiled brat lines chocolate bars where books should be. Later on, they step out together, Tim in sneakers and Willy in dress shoes. On their way, they come across three boys collecting already answered assignments from a youngster named Carl. This pisses Tim off, so he asks if the boys are too stupid to do their own homework. All three boys surround Tim at this point.
Hey!
One of them rummaging through his bag and taking out his Walkman. They start to throw it between themselves, making Tim angry enough to punch one of them in the stomach and press his face against the concrete. Just then, a girl named Gabby begins to trash talk Tim, but he grabs his Walkman and tells her to stay out of it. Ms. Muller-Borello, the school director, then shows up to break up the fight and sends the other students on their way. Mr. Pauling, who's in charge of the boarding students, meets with Tim and Willy, revealing that he put them in the same room on purpose.
Alles klar, okay. Ich kümmere mich ab jetzt nichts.
He goes on to hand them the books they'll need for their classes, and Willy clarifies his needs. Apparently, he can't eat anything with avocado in it. In turn, Mr. Pauling makes both boys shake hands as a sign of good faith. That night, Tim swipes Willy's phone while he's asleep, unlocking it with the boy's fingerprint. He's all but written 3 words in a message to his mom when Willy wakes up and accuses him of stealing. He plans to report Tim immediately, but Tim stops him by the door. They're in the middle of this argument when a plane whizzes past their window, flames emanating from its tail end. They watch as someone escapes from the plane with a parachute, and Tim is hell-bent on checking it out. He manages to coax Willy into joining him in this bad idea. They walk a few ways from their dorm, Willy lagging behind because he's scared. Pushing past his fear, he notices that the plane that crashed has Sauerlich emblazoned on the side, a sure sign that the plane belongs to his family. Afraid that Georg may be hurt, Willy hurries towards the rubble, only for Tim to stop him,
Na los, komm!
pointing out that they saw Georg escape. It's daylight soon enough, and the cops swarm the area like flies to honey. Detective Glockner shows up too, with his daughter Gabby in the passenger seat. Tim and Willy watch as all of this unfolds from behind the bushes nearby. As Gabby blocks off the area with some police tape, she notices movement in the bushes. After giving the intruders a chance to come out, she yells for her father, forcing Willy and Tim to show themselves. Soon her dad joins them.
Sei ruhig, nicht so laut.
And Willie introduces himself as a Sourlick, asking about the progress of the investigation. Detective Glockner doesn't release any information, but he has his daughter babysit both boys. As he leaves, Gabby asks about Heaven's Guardian, the ancient statue the plane was transporting. Apparently, it's made completely out of gold. They're still talking about it when little Carl absent-mindedly follows his metal detector in search of the statue. Somehow, Tim gets Gabby to join them as they follow Carl. In time, he arrives at an abandoned factory nearby, stopping when he gets to a dark tunnel-like entrance. Then he realizes he's been followed.
Gegenstände mit spezifischer Legierung.
Taking a puff from his inhaler, he explains everything and Tim eggs him on. Together, they head into the hole in the wall and keep on walking until they come across a ladder. Tim wastes no time climbing his way down, and the others wait until he yells that he found a parachute. They all climb down into the factory basement, where they find the parachute alongside the casket housing Heaven's Guardian. Gabby opens it up, shielding her hands with her jacket sleeves, but finds nothing inside. So they conclude that Georg must have betrayed the Sourlicks
Das ist die Schatulle. Mach sie auf!
Ja, nächst ab.
and run off with the statue. They turn over everything to the cops, and Detective Glockner has Willie and Tim take the casket to Hermann alongside his daughter. The three of them ride in the back of a cop car, leaving little Carl to chase after them in vain. Arriving at the Sourlick residence, Tim is baffled by how rich Willie is. They step inside, admire the other artworks, and say hello to Miss Mauser, one of Hermann's work colleagues. Just then, Hermann shows up and signs for the casket,
Ich meine, was wollt ihr denn damit?
revealing that the statue on the plane was only a replica. Apparently, he's been suspecting Georg for about 3 months, so he arranged for the replica to be transported, only for Georg to run off. Still in doubt, Willie asks for his mom and gets told that she's in an energy session with Raimondo, a blind guru. As though summoned, Raimondo pops up and Mrs. Sourlick follows soon enough, hugging everybody one after the other. Oscar, Raimondo's dog, also shows up, stressing Hermann so much that he tears open a bar of chocolate.
Ja, die würde ich auch mal gerne kennenlernen.
Later on, Hermann takes the kids for a ride, admitting that he can't remember the last time he drove himself. On the way, he notices a white van blocking his path and comes down to check it out. Suddenly, 3 people in masks pop out, grab him, and hold a cloth soaked in chloroform over his nose. Tim doesn't hesitate to go after them, but the smallest of the 3 kidnappers faces off against him. The kidnapper, well trained in martial arts, easily jumps over Tim and then flings him to the ground with time to spare. The kidnappers drive off shortly, but not before Gabby takes a bunch of pictures.
Vater war der jüngste Oberkommissar ever.
The cops man the area soon, and Mr. Glockner asks for as many details as the kids can provide, making his deputy, Bienert, note them down. The next day, Mr. Pauling teaches the class about the Shaolong Heaven's Guardian, hooking up a protector as a visual aid. He explains how it was located at the foot of Mount Songshan, China, and was called Vaishravana, the most sacred object in the Buddhist temple. It was also worshipped as the protector of Buddhist teachings and disappeared in 1928.
Alle sicherlich von dem Flugzeugabsturz.
In the 60s, it was sold for $12 million at an auction. Tim interrupts at this point, wanting to know what the monks on the projector are doing. Apparently, back then, they practiced breathing techniques to help them meditate for longer hours. Later on, they channeled these techniques into their fighting. The bell rings, signaling the end of the class. Returning to his dorm room, Tim finds Willie packing up his stuff. It turns out that Mrs. Sourlick didn't take the kidnapping well,
Polizei wird ihn da bestimmt rausholen.
so Willie wants to be with her. Worse off, the kidnappers discovered the statue was a fake and now want the real one in exchange for Herman. Tim empathizes with his roommate, only for Willie to hand him a new phone. He almost doesn't accept it, but Willie clarifies that it's nothing. They sit for a bit and discuss how to move forward with the case. Just then, Tim has the idea to ask Gabby about the investigation. Shortly after, Tim tracks her down to band practice, and he and Willie wait for her to come out. The moment she does, he asks to speak with her, and they step aside to talk. He asks about the case, but Gabby refuses to divulge any information.
Kann ich kurz mit dir reden?
She even catches Willie peeping from the corner and has him come out. Gabby goes on to question him about Georg, and Willie reveals that Georg has a hut by Lake Weiga where they go fishing sometimes. He makes sure to repeat that he thinks Georg is innocent. Gabby doesn't listen. She lets slip that the cops have a lead, so Tim and Willie pay Carl a visit, hoping he can help them get into the station. They trip the alarm when they arrive at Carl's lair, and the youngster rushes out in a frenzy. He turns it off after confirming that it's safe and asks them to drop off their homework. Tim has to clarify that they came for a special mission, and Carl smiles ear to ear. That night, Tim uses a rope to climb out of his dorm room, joining Willie and Carl. They arrive at the police station minutes after Detective Glockner and Gabby, crouching to avoid detection. Carl then connects his laptop to the lock, using an algorithm to find the password. Sadly, the laptop runs out of juice before it can decipher the password. Tipping over, Willie finds that the gate has been open the entire time. Meanwhile, Gabby and her trusty trumpet entertain her father. She stops to mention Georg's place at Lake Weiga, and her dad begs her not to continue investigating the case.
Mein Foto, habt ihr doch den Wagen überhaupt erst gefunden?
At this point, the boys are already inside the evidence room, and they come across the van used to kidnap Mr. Sourlick. Willie takes a picture of the boot print on the rear door, and the click of his camera surprises Tim and Carl. Just then, Gabby spots them via the security cameras and quickly distracts her dad by playing a number on her trumpet. Luckily, it works. In the evidence room, Tim opens the kidnapper's van and notices something carved into it. Using a pencil and a piece of paper, Carl traces it out. The message reads, "Stick," and only Willie draws the connection to his dad. Apparently, Herman writes his S the same way it was inscribed into the van. Suddenly, a rabid dog starts barking at them, putting the fear of God into all three boys. Gabby then shows up with some sausages, distracting the dog just long enough for them to escape. The moment Tim arrives at his dorm room, Mr. Pauling turns on the lights. He has Tim sit across from him and drills him about behaving the same way he did in his last school. He then makes it clear that this is the last warning Tim will be getting. The next day, Carl approaches Tim and Willie in the hallway, smiling as he refers to them as an investigative team. The two clarify that they're not a team, only for Gabby to arrive. She gives them grief about breaking into the station, and then drills them for information about what they found out. Tim plays hard to get at first, but Gabby wears him down,
Wir sind ja jetzt ein professionelles Ermittlungsteam.
adding that they need a lair. Carl can't help but smile because he was the first to suggest a lair. They all gather at Carl's cluttered attic to discuss the only two clues they have, the word stick and the boot print. Willie reveals that everyone at his home on Oak Avenue knew about the flight. Hugo, the gardener, Edda, the housekeeper, Miss Mouser, Hermane's business partner, and Amanda and Raimondo, who've been living with the Sourlicks for 3 months now. Gabby instantly recalls that the alarms at the Sourlick residence started going off 3 months ago, so she questions Willie about Raimondo and his group. Apparently, they do yoga with Mrs. Sourlick, and their group claims to summon spirits. Gabby finds this hard to believe. Meanwhile, Willie remembers a big show coming up tomorrow, a show where Raimondo and his group will form a big energy circle and attempt to contact dead or missing persons, particularly his dad.
Amanda und Raimondo machen Yoga mit ihr.
This gives Carl an idea. He plans to use plastic sheets and silicone spray to sift through the shoe prints, and they test out his idea immediately. It passes in flying colors as Gabby dusts for shoe prints. The only problem now is how to get in. Willie reveals that invitations are sent out via email, and Carl has no problem hacking into their system. Much to his dismay, Tim has to go as Timothea Mueller, a lady of class. The next day, right outside Willie's house, Gabby applies some makeup on Tim's face, and they talk about how his dad passed when he was 5. The Walkman was his dad's, and it contains beautiful songs he curated for his mom when they were younger. Then, Carl interrupts their discussion to hand Tim an earpiece he made from an old hearing aid. With this, the infiltration begins. Tim catwalks his way to the entrance, swiping his hair as he introduces himself as Timothea. Mrs. Sourlick lets him in. in, and Tim blends in so well that Edda offers him an appetizer made with avocados.
Ein Duett von Tomate und Mozzarella?
Willie, watching the entire house via the security cameras, directs Carl and Gabby to Raimondo's black pickup truck. Then they place a tracker on it, only for Detective Glockner to show up. He's dressed weirdly with a wig on his head, an elbow-length suit jacket on his frame, and a scarf around his neck. Gabby suggests that they end the mission immediately, but it's too late, seeing as Glockner is already approaching Tim. Everyone holds their breaths as they pray he doesn't get recognized, and as luck will have it, the detective simply shakes Tim's hand and goes on his way. Later on, Mrs. Sourlick invites all her guests into a room filled with lit candles and gives them the rundown of what they'll be doing. Tim pretends to dump his treat on the floor and squats to lay out the plastic sheets. As though in cahoots, the skies darken and thunder claps all around Oak Avenue. Everyone is seated, and the moment Mrs. Sourlick introduces Raimondo and his medium, Amanda, they appear out of nowhere.
Bitte helfen Sie uns.
Raimondo wastes no time claiming that there are intruders in their midst. In turn, Mrs. Sourlick introduces Detective Glockner as Kramer, a friend of the family, and Tim as Timothea, a spiritual enthusiast recommended by Lord Lonsky. Raimondo then begins his seance, and as they approach the guests, Amanda steps on one of the sheets Tim laid out. Willie, who's been keeping an eye on things, alerts Carl and Gabby. The two then sneak up the stairs and rummage through Raimondo's bag, discovering that his real name is Otto Biersack. Inside, Raimondo refuses to step on the sheet, but pretends to be getting a message from Herman. Willie, on the other hand, discovers that he's been stuffing himself full of avocado treats, and his stomach begins to act out. He rushes to the restroom right above the seance room, and as his explosive diarrhea begins, it's loud enough to disrupt the seance. Raimondo falls immediately, lying that it's a sign from the other side.
Gleich weiß.
He gets back up and eventually steps on the plastic sheet, leaving Tim to quietly celebrate. Detective Glockner notices this, so Tim has to lie that he's just happy Raimondo is all right. In turn, Willie informs the others about the successful mission, and they all disperse. Getting to his dorm room, Tim peels out a book on Shaolong techniques and practices them early the next morning. Mr. Pauling catches him mid-practice and commends him on fitting in. They then race each other back to the dorms. Later on, Willie and Carl keep tabs on Raimondo's tracker, while Tim and Gabby make their way up. Soon they compare the boot prints from the seance with the one from the van, but they don't match. It's at this point that Carl calls everyone's attention to the tracker. It stopped moving at Stickhausen, and they realize it's what Herman was trying to say. They all agree to skip class that day and take out their bikes as they ride their way down to Stickhausen.
Und Mathe müssen heute ausfallen.
Okay, bin dabei.
They arrive at the exact location of the tracker and hide their bikes beside a tractor. Peeking, they see Amanda, but this time she's speaking a different language. Carl captures this language on his phone, and when Amanda leaves, he reveals that it's Hakka, a Mandarin dialect specific to Shaolong monks. This is all the proof they need. Meanwhile, the kidnappers make Herman hold up today's newspaper. Back at Raimondo's, Gabby and the others sneak in and spread out. Gabby feels the carpet until her hands come upon a latch. She takes the carpet aside and overhears Mr. Sourlick's muffled screams. Unfortunately, the latch is padlocked and the key is outside beside a sleeping Raimondo. They sneak back out, and while they're brainstorming ways to steal the key, Oscar walks up to them. All Tim can do is hope the dog doesn't bark. It doesn't. Meanwhile, Amanda recalls that she didn't bring the key along and makes a U-turn right then and there.
Aber süß ist das schon.
Dann will ich ja Gabi die Pfote nennen.
At the scene, Willie switches out the tape in Tim's Walkman for a random one he finds at Raimondo's house, and only Carl knows about it. Soon, Carl finds a pair of contact lenses in the sink, proving that Raimondo was never blind. Unfortunately, Tim doesn't know this. He sneaks up to Raimondo's side, and just as he grabs the keys, Raimondo grabs his hand. Carl pops out at this point to tell Gabby about Raimondo faking his blindness, and Willie follows a few seconds later. The whole crew is assembled when Amanda arrives, so Willie and the others accuse them of kidnapping Herman. They claim he's beneath the latch, but neither Raimondo nor Amanda seem scared. In fact, they call the cops. Minutes later, Detective Glockner and his men show up, asking for the key to the latch. Raimondo claims he's never been beyond the latch, so Glockner has Bienert pry it open with a crowbar. Unfortunately, Bienert is too weak to pull it off. Impatient, Gabby picks the lock, and they all lean in as soon as the latch is open, finding nothing but empty space.
Selbstverständlich, nur zu.
Raimondo and Amanda can't stop smirking as they claim to only be in love, not guilty of any crime. Angry, Detective Glockner loads the kids into his car and drives them back to school for a meeting with the director. Ms. Mueller-Bollerno doesn't take kindly to their chaotic cooperation, but the kids are certain that they're onto something. To shut them up, Detective Glockner reveals that the boot print from the van belongs to Georg, not to mention the clothes from the kidnapping found at his hut in Lake Weiga. To round things off, the analysis of the ransom call revealed that it was Georg speaking, and Willie knew this the entire time. Tim, Gabby, and Carl all look at Willie simultaneously, wondering why he lied to them. Meanwhile, Mr. Pauling, who hasn't spoken a word since, takes this chance to express his disappointment in all of them, especially Tim. To make matters worse, the director suspends Tim as a scapegoat.
Du bist natürlich in einer speziellen.
Angrily, Tim returns to his dorm room to pack up his stuff, and Willie drops by to apologize. It's pointless, seeing as Tim doesn't believe him. He simply returns the phone Willie gifted him and makes it clear that the suspension is his fault. Just like that, the team gets disbanded. Tim makes his way home. Carl watches him from the cracks in his lair. Gabby goes with her dad, and Willie sulks in his father's car. Come daybreak, Carl, who's been working on the case all night, is woken up by an alert that the tracker has moved to the old factory. Without wasting time, he grabs his jacket and backpack and makes a run for it. Meanwhile, Willie also realizes something as he's going through the pictures he took with Pauling and his father.
Zum Selbermachen seid ihr ja zu blöd.
Carl gets stopped by some bullies, but he stands up to them until he runs, leaving them at the mercy of Ms. Mueller-Bollerno. Willie tries to call Tim, but realizes that he's with Tim's phone. He tries Gabby's cell, but she's too busy with band practice. While Carl rides down to the factory, Willie arrives at the skate park where Tim hangs out. Still mad, Tim is rude to Willie, but this doesn't stop Willie from showing him a picture where Pauling's shirt read Stick, claiming that it's what his dad saw. Arriving at the abandoned factory, Carl spots a black car down below and Mr. Pauling controlling a drone up above. The oblivious boy tries to call out to his teacher, and when he doesn't get a response, he goes closer. Meanwhile, Tim presses play on his Walkman, but doesn't hear his usual music. He tries rewinding the tape and hears Pauling talking about the kidnapping instead. Tim chases after Willie's car for this reason. When he catches up, he makes Willie listen to the tape too. Carl also catches up to Pauling, and as shocked as the teacher is to see him, he plays it cool. Carl reveals that he knows the location of Herman, and Pauling lets the youngster guide him to the bridge outside.
Eigentlich so klug.
Pointing below, Carl suggests that they call the cops, only for Pauling to break out a devious smile. The youngster soon realizes that his teacher is the culprit and sprays his inhaler into Pauling's eyes. Sadly, this doesn't save him. Pauling grabs Carl in an instant and hurls him down to the factory basement. During this period, Willie and Tim drive back to school to pick up Gabby, and the three of them head to Carl's lair, where they connect the dots. As it turns out, Pauling saw the statue when he visited Oak Avenue. He then informed Raimondo and Amanda, who posed as spiritualists, to infiltrate the Sourlick residence. Mr. Sourlick discovered his statue was in danger and sent Georg to transport it.
Wahrscheinlich hat sich Georg gewehrt.
Somehow, Raimondo snuck onto the plane and tried to hijack it. Georg fought back, and the struggle ended with a gunshot hitting the wing of the plane, setting it ablaze. Raimondo knocked Georg out, jumped off the plane with him, and imprisoned Georg somewhere. When he discovered the statue was fake, he came up with a second plan, kidnapping Herman. Meanwhile, Detective Glockner and Bienert have the real statue. They have a random officer take it to the exchange point, and he signals Glockner Glockner, who's watching via his binoculars, with a thumbs up. The kids think Raimondo wore Georg's shoes and left the clothes at his Lake Weiga hut to further implicate him. Gabby opens Carl's laptop at this moment and realizes that Herman must be at the old factory. She tries to call her dad, but he doesn't pick up. In truth, he can't. As it turns out, no one shows up to pick the statue. Pauling's drone does it. As it flies off, Detective Glockner and Bienert have no choice but to chase after it in vain.
Ist Carla nicht alleine hingefahren?
The kids are determined to save Carl, so they ride to the factory on their bikes. As they arrive, the drone carrying the statue also arrives. They watch it land right in front of Pauling, and then head to Raimondo's pickup truck. Pulling out a small pair of pliers, Gabby goes under the truck. She cuts off the wire linking the steering wheel to the stability control system, making sure they can't escape. Just then, Raimondo and Amanda come out of the factory, and Pauling meets them outside. He shows them the statue, and Amanda confirms its authenticity. In turn, Pauling leads them back inside, urging them to release the hostages while he holds on to the statue. Tim and the others sneak in after the adults, watching as Raimondo and Amanda climb down into the basement. Sadly, Pauling betrays them, unhooking the mobile ladder and laughing as he promises to sell the statue for parts.
Bei uns im Kloster wird von dem ganzen Volk angebetet.
As Pauling makes his way outside, Tim and Gabby chase after him, but their teacher gets into Raimondo's pickup truck and almost runs them down. Gabby is certain that he won't go far, and she's right. Soon, Pauling starts to experience trouble with the steering wheel and eventually crashes into a wooden billboard. Down in the basement, Amanda and Herman get into a heated argument, only stopping when they realize that Carl is running out of breath. Raimondo quickly unties Carl, Georg, and Herman, and together they brainstorm for a solution. Luckily, Willie shows up where the ladder used to be. Georg tells him to fetch Carl's inhaler from the net beneath the iron bridge, and a worried Willie gets on it. Tim and Gabby continue to chase after Pauling, but Oscar runs ahead of them. Sadly, Pauling has no pity on the dog and knocks it down with the statue. Willie finds Carl's inhaler, but has to hold on to the railing of the bridge to grab it. Too bad his hand slips, sending him falling into the net. Tim and Gabby find Oscar incapacitated on the floor.
Ihr Arschlochkinder.
And while the latter pets the dog, the former scans the area for Pauling. Meanwhile, Willie finds himself on the iron net with Carl's inhaler about to fall through. In the basement, everyone but Georg is worried that he won't make it in time to save Carl. But just as their hope dwindles, Willie shows up with the inhaler. They all cheer him on, and he throws the inhaler into the small crowd. Quickly, they hand it to Carl, who has to take 2 puffs of the inhaler to regain himself, and his first word is drone. Pauling, noticing that Tim and Gabby are preoccupied with the dog, tries to escape, but soon finds his own drone attacking him. Thanks to Carl, the drone knocks Pauling down so hard that he lets go of the statue. Tim then shows up to grab it, and it becomes a face-off between him and his teacher. Everyone in the basement watches via the drone camera. Using the Shaolong technique, Tim places both his hands on Pauling's shoulders, using them as a pivot to jump over him.
Gib ihn mir. Nein.
The teacher is amused to the point of smiling, but soon switches up as he attacks Tim. Using his strength against him, Tim throws Pauling across the field, sending him falling face first on the ground. The teacher can barely stand after this, and the cops show up just in time to capture him. The peeps in the basement howl for joy, hugging each other like a family that just won the lottery. Detective Glockner wastes no time embracing his daughter and just waves quaintly at Tim. Time passes and Gabby performs with her band. It's a recital of epic proportions, so everyone from Willie's parents down to Carl is present. They sway to the sound of music while Detective Glockner pulls up outside. In a hurry, he leaves everything else to Bienert and rushes inside with a bandaged Oscar. He joins Tim in the crowd just in time for Gabby's solo, and she smiles ear to ear upon seeing him. Gabby puts on such a thrilling performance that the crowd starts applauding her. even before she rounds up. That same night, Georg flies Raimondo and Amanda to Dengfeng, where they plan to return the Heaven's Guardian to its rightful home. Willie pulls Carl, Tim, and Gabby aside just to hand them matching shirts. He then makes them call him Kooky, seeing as only his friends call him that. Shortly after, they head back to the recital, the letters Tkkg written across their shirts. Never have their classmates seen a cooler set of detectives. Tim came from the slums. Having lost his dad at age 5, all he had left was his mom, his grit, and his gift for math. This gift got him into a prestigious school, but his grit helped him make friends like Willie, Gabby, and Carl. Together, the three of them solved their first case and brought happiness to the Sourlick household. You've been blessed with a gift, too. Don't waste it by remaining on that couch.